Okay, I wanted to do this video about this guitar. It's a very, very rare Hank Marvin Prototype signature Stratocaster in Fiesta Red. It was built in the late 80s and it was part of a run commissioned by the Arbiter Group, who were the Fender UK distributor at the time. And the boss of Arbiter Group decided, hey, let's do a Hank Marvin signature model. And he thought, let's equip it with all of the latest Fender technology and everything that Fender has to offer, which is what you see here. Unfortunately, it wasn't completely to Hank Marvin's liking. So despite the signature on the headstock, this guitar never made it into full production. So this is a prototype. He liked the sound and everything about it, but this was based. What they did is they took an Eric Clapton Strat and they kind of adorned a Clapton Strat with the Fiesta Red and the gold hardware and the graphite nut and one or two other bits. And I think the feeling was that it was too close, to the Clapton model. It wasn't individual enough. One of the other things I hear that he didn't like the fact that you couldn't see any pole pieces on these pickups, which I think this look from the late 80s, 90s this was based on the Strat Plus, which is kind of like the Deluxe and the Elite series now. I think this look is quite cool. But anyway, several things that he didn't like. It wasn't the sound, he didn't mind the sound, but it also didn't have a bird's eye maple neck. So anyway, this was part of that original batch, which were kind of rejected, if you like, by Hank Marvin. And so modifications were made, and then the subsequent model was sold. So apparently there was about 6 of this type of guitar. From this batch of 20, there are 6 of these, apparently, in the market that have somehow, back in the day, they made their way out into the market. Don't know how, but we're talking over, 20 years ago now. So I've had mine since then, and it's a fantastic guitar. And I just wanted to talk you through the features of the lace sensor pickups and the mid-boost circuitry. So you've got the traditional Strat layout, and I think the aim at the time was to not only have a hum cancelling Strat, it's on right now, it's not buzzing, but it was to also try and get some humbucker-like tones as well. And it sort of works, the humbucker side of it. I mean, to me it just sounds like a really fat Strat sound rather than a humbucker. Anyway, so normal controls, but their functions are slightly different. You have normal volume here, master volume. You have master tone, except it's a Fender TBX control, and that stands for treble and bass expander. And then you have another knob labelled tone here, but it's not tone, it's the mid-boost control. So this is what everything's all about on these guitars. It's this bottom knob. Now, to get just the normal pickup sound, you run it all the way down. And then as you turn it up, you are adding mid-boost. I'm not sure what the frequency is. It's probably about 1K, I don't know. But so you're adding mid-boost. So you run it all the way off to get the non-mid-boosted signal. The TBX control is not anything to do with the active circuitry. You can fit a TBX control to a Les Paul, to a bass guitar, whatever you like, active or passive. This is just something that was fitted to Strats and Fenders of this era. I have a Telly from the 80s with a TBX in it, and I think it's a really useful control. The way they work, it's a passive control, but at 5 there's a notch, and that represents where a normal tone pot would be at 10. And so as you turn this control up past 5, you get a presence boost, and obviously if you turn it down below 5, you get a normal tone cut. So it's a useful tool. Sometimes I find positions 2 and 4 with the sort of the twin single coil sounds. Sometimes I find that can be a little bit dark, so TBX helps brighten those sounds. So anyway, that's the TBX, which is also on this guitar. So at the moment then, I've got the volume set at 5. Now, because this is an active instrument, the sound that you get, some people think active sounds a bit clinical. And that's because once you've got the battery on board and the circuitry, normally the active circuit in a guitar, I mean, it's quite often a mid-boost of some kind. There are other mid-boost circuits available from people like EMG and other people that I can remember seeing but can't remember the names of. But it can be other things as well. For example, EMG do one called a Strat Presence Boost. They do one called an Afterburner as well, which is kind of like a loudness, smiley face EQ boost for your guitar. But anyway, most of them will do something along those lines. But when you don't have those functions engaged, what you end up with is the signal from whatever pickups you're using. These, as I said, are lace sensor, but they are just normal pickups. You could put these in any guitar. They don't need to be active or powered in order to work. On the other hand, you could say you could fit this mid-boost circuitry to any Strat you like. I used to run it in a Strat with Texas Specials, which was kind of cool. But again, what you get is the pure sound from the pickups. Now, when you have a passive guitar, everything from the wires inside to the pots themselves to your cord going to the amp, everything puts a load on those pickups and absorbs high frequency, basically. So the net result of a passive guitar is that the sound is somewhat influenced by all of those things. And so when you have an active guitar, because of the battery on board, you effectively have a buffered guitar. So the output coming through the jack into your amplifier is buffered from the guitar. That means it's a driven signal. So none of the pots or anything affects the tone at all. So therefore, you hear the pure pickup sound. And so this is why some people think they sound clinical, because they're just super clean and, lacking character is something that people say. And that's kind of true. I mean, as I say, with passive, the things such as the cable and everything else, they do change the sound a little bit. But these, and this guitar in particular, I think this is a really, really good active sound that sounds pretty authentic. And then obviously you have the benefits of active, which would be such as the volume control. When you turn it down, you don't lose treble at all. You maintain exactly the same tone as you do when you're on 10. So therefore your volume control is, it's a bit like a pickup height adjustment, or, a pickup, it's literally the level adjustment. So if you're running into an overdriven amplifier, then the volume control will control your gain. Or if you're in a completely clean amp, it will literally be a volume control, a bit like turning the volume up and down on the amplifier itself, the master volume. So anyway, I'm running the volume at 5. I'm going into a Roland Microcube, which I think sounds really good, but it's set to be like an AC30 type of sound. So if I roll the volume down, it will clean up. If I turn it up, it overdrives. Okay, so how does it sound? So at the moment, this is the volume 5 or 6, no mid boost, TBX at 5. So it's kind of the plain pickups. Clean it up a bit. Okay, so that sounds cool. Volume up a little bit to get a bit more gain. Okay, so that's volume on 7. Max volume now. I mean, this is obviously slightly depending on the fact that I'm using this cube amp, but so all we're listening to right now is a lace sensor with the mid circuitry, but that's not switched on. And so the only reason it sounds so fat is that the very fact that it has the battery in it it boosts everything just a bit anyway. It doesn't influence the tone, but the actual output is a little bit hotter than it would be if this was a purely passive pickup. So that sounds good. Now I'm going to dial in some mid boost. Now, when you've got a preamp set the way it is, if I put the mid boost in now, it's just going to compress against the preamp. So I'm going to turn the volume down, clean the sound up, then you can actually hear what the mid boost does. So, but this is another good thing about this guitar. Excuse me. You can just turn it down to get a cleaner sound. The mid boost then. So the volume is on 4. Okay, there's the mid boost into 7. If I go in and out, so off, into about 7. It really, really thickens it up. I don't know that it sounds like a humbucker, but certainly it sounds like a hot humbucker. It doesn't sound like a PAF, but certainly a hot humbucker level of gain can be had. I used to run a Dumble clone made by Stereotone, and this guitar as it is sounded amazing through it. Really, really good. So if I try to get a little bit more of a sort of a Gibson-y sound, or as much as you can, the mid boost is up at 8. I'm going to turn some TBX up now, which is going to brighten things up. So let's see what we get here. Volume is still down at 4 on the guitar. It's got that twang of a PAF, yeah. I'm going to take the mid out now. Back in. Anyway, so there you can really hear what it does to the tone. A bit more gain. To give us a slightly more overdriven sound. I've still got TBX nearly all the way up, so this is quite a bright and thick sound. The one complaint I would have about this mid-boost circuitry is take the sound we've got now. It's such a boosted signal. It's so hot that you find that you slam into any preamp that you might come into in an amplifier. I think something like a Plexi or a JCM 800, where there's just so much preamp gain, only so much preamp gain available, and then you need to add a pedal or something like that to boost it. And I think it would work well in an amp like that. But I find that if you wish to exploit the good sounds that you can get from the pure single coil sounds with no mid boost, so for example, you might want to be on full TBX, no mid boost, and quite high on the volume, high gain, but on the neck pickup. So if you like that kind of tone, but you need the amp to drive enough to get that tone, then, you know, if you also want to use the mid boost on bridge, you have to be careful, because you'll just slam the preamp and it becomes so hot that you lose any dynamics, and it just compresses. So it's fine as long as you just remember to keep the volume relatively low. I mean, even now, volume's at 4.5. I'm losing dynamics even now. Okay, so obviously this means you can go into, you know, total meltdown. As you can see, it sounds like you've got 15 pedals turned on. So it sounds quite hot. I mean, neck pickup with this setting is just mud city. Smashing Pumpkins use this kind of configuration, I think, which is, I mean, it sounds cool for that. But yeah, it's a mega overdrive sound. I always try to kind of sort of tame the amount of power that's available, you know, to try to get a Gibson-y kind of tone. But let's look at some of the other tones now. So TBX off. Here's the neck sound. I beg your pardon, mid boost off. TBX at max. This is the neck pickup. So it sounds really cool. And then the in-between sounds, this is these two. Anyway, middle position sounds good. So there we have it, yeah, and position 2. And there we go. So that's the guitar.